a Studio B production.
Coming to you from the headquarters of Studio B in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce number 118. On this episode, we'll talk to Ute legend Keith Van Horn. We'll react to LeBron James heading back to Cleveland. We'll discuss the Utah Jazz re-signing Gordon Hayward for a max contract and break down Dante Exum's summer league performance. It's Dog and Deuce.
Hey, this is Fireman Ed, and you're listening to Dog and Deuce show, man. Great guys, great show, man. Listen up.
From Studio B in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce. Join the conversation at doganddeuce.com or send an email to feedback@doganddeuce.com.
Thanks for listening to the Dog and Deuce show. Follow along with the show notes at doganddeuce.com.
You can call or text the D&D show voicemail and text line at 801-477-7678. That's 801-47-SPORT. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
And this is episode 118 of the Dog and Deuce show. Rough start there. We'll get back on track. It's all good. It's all good. You're tweeting.
Focusing
Tweeting.
on the wrong things.
Yeah, priorities, man.
Gosh.
We're doing a TV show / podcast here.
I know. I need to get. I'm ready.
A little
Game
important
face
here.
on.
Yeah, game face on.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome in. For those who don't know, this is the Dog and Deuce show. It's a sports podcast. This is our 4th anniversary, dude.
4th.
In July of 2010, we published
Wow.
our first episode, number 100.
Wow.
And so we are at our 4th anniversary. That's 4 years of mayhem and all the good stuff.
I'm not giving you any diamond ring or anything, though.
I don't want it, man. I don't want it.
Okay.
Just a job well done is all I ask.
Job well
All
done.
I ask, yeah.
Job well done.
Again, for those who are listening on our podcast feed, as usual, we are doing the show on television now. It's our second week. You can find it on channels 19.1, which is America 1, and 19.2 on the weekends, Saturday and Sundays. And then it plays throughout the rest of the week too. So lots of places to find us. For those who are viewing us, you can find the audio version over at doganddeuce.com. That's the best, easiest way to get in touch with us and find everything we've done. You can find previous episodes, including some of the stellar interviews that we've been able to book over the years, including like Adam Carolla and Ricky Williams and all those big, super names that make us look super important.
That's right.
It is hot outside. Very hot. And, it's kind of the doldrums of summer. It's when we're waiting for football to start. But fortunately, there's been a lot of really big news going on around here. And so we're going to talk about LeBron James going back to Cleveland, which is insane. We're also going to be talking about the Jazz matching the offer sheet that Gordon Hayward signed with Charlotte for a max deal. I know you got strong opinions on that. I have strong opinions on that, as do all the listeners and viewers, I'm sure. And then we're also going to break down Dante Exum's performance in the Summer League in Vegas. So, big show. But first and foremost, we had a chance the other day to talk to Keith Van Horn. He needs no introduction. Ute legend. Also played in the NBA. Stellar guy. Really represents the University of Utah community very well. He played under Rick Majerus. We had a chance to ask him about Rick Majerus, ask him about what he thinks about what's going on with all the super teams in the NBA. Really nice guy. We had him on the phone. We're going to play the interview now. We'd love to hear what you guys think of it. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can always email us at doganddeuce@gmail.com. But one thing that we really like to utilize, and we're trying to push it more, is the voicemail and text line. Which is 801-477-7678. That's 801-47-SPORT. Makes it a little bit easier. And that way you can really you can tell us what you think in your own voice. And you don't even have to leave a voicemail. We prefer voicemail, but you can always text too. Give us a text. Let us know what you think, man.
Yeah, get loud, get angry, get happy. Tell us we're smart. Tell us we're dumb. Just tell us something. Leave a message. and give us your feedback, because we like to hear what the listeners agree with and don't agree with. Preferably don't agree with us.
I know. Those are some of the funnest ones. Definitely.
Absolutely.
We'll play your feedback on the air. Definitely. So, in the meantime, let's listen to Keith Van Horn. We had a chance to sit down with him. Well, not sit down with him, over the phone. It was a great chat. He was super generous with his time. Super nice guy. So let's play that interview now. There's Keith Van Horn right here on Dog and Deuce on KPDR TV and doganddeuce.com.
We want to know what you think. Leave us a rating or review in iTunes. Just search for Dog and Deuce in the iTunes store.
We're very happy here on Dog and Deuce to have the wonderful, amazing, the Ute legend, Mr. Keith Van Horn is joining us. How you doing, Keith?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Hey, outstanding. You enjoying your summer so far?
I am.
Well, we really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us. We're really excited. We're big, huge Ute fans, and we have always really admired what you've done, not only for the Utes, but obviously your career in the NBA we followed very, very closely. So we cannot thank you enough for coming on. Real quick, I wanted to get your thoughts on, unfortunately, last December we lost Rick Majerus, and I know you guys were pretty close, and he was an instrumental part in your career and developing you as a basketball player. I was just kind of wondering, do you have any memories or anecdotes that you could share about Rick and what he meant to you?
Yeah, I guess I had a unique relationship with him for a number of different reasons, and I think anytime you have you lose someone who meant so much to your life, it's difficult. And I think what's amazing about Coach is that he really impacted a lot of people in his life, and obviously was cut short. But going to his funeral and getting the opportunity to talk to the people who were involved in his life, and really is amazing the positive impact that he had on so many people, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity to have known him and have gotten to play for him.
Yeah, and here in Utah, he was somewhat of a controversial figure. There have been some former players who were not happy with his coaching techniques and his style, but there are others who have been, just touted his praises. And I'm wondering, did you see anything? Was there anything that would give validity to some of the criticisms that have been leveled at him over the years?
Well, I think that when you're a player going in to play for Rick Majerus, I think you go into it understanding that he's going to be a really, really, really tough on you as a player. If you don't think that you can handle that, the long practices and the coach getting on you, then you probably shouldn't play for him. I think that his style, while it isn't for everybody, I certainly think that it was effective for a lot of his players. And while it was difficult, even looking at the NBA guys, obviously they were successful partly because of the coaching that he provided. But even the guys that didn't go on to play collegiately afterwards, or just went into a normal business career or what have you, I think they benefited from playing for him. They learned how to persevere and work hard and fight through some challenges, and I think that they all benefited from having that experience playing for him.
I was wondering if you could point to maybe one or two watershed moments on your time up at the Hill when your career was underway and you really looked at it and said, "Man, I'm getting good. I'm getting better. Coach Majerus and I are working together. The team's obviously playing really well. I could make a career of this in the NBA." And what that moment was, and how did it motivate you to continue? I mean, like you said, Coach Majerus could be tough at times to play for, but the results don't lie. Wins, losses, tournament appearances, etc.
Well, yeah, and then you include graduation rate and the success that his players have had off the court. I think are tributes to his program. I think that when I was a freshman, coming out of high school, I think every high school player that's good likes to think that they're going to make the NBA and become a star. I think you never really know if that's true until after you get into the college arena and you start playing against the best college players in the country. There's those exceptions where you have a LeBron James or some of the younger stars that have came out of high school or after their freshman year. I think there's a few exceptions there, but I'd say a wide majority of those college athletes really don't know until you step on the court as a freshman and get to compete. And once I had the opportunity to do that, I felt like my belief in myself and my ability to potentially make the NBA was justified, and I felt like if I really absorbed what Coach Majerus was teaching me and really learned the game from him, I could certainly make a career out of it.
Do you think that you would have been as successful in the NBA if you had not played under Majerus?
No, I don't think so. I think that obviously talent wins out, and guys that are going to play in the NBA in general are going to play in the NBA regardless of their coach. Now, their understanding of the game and their success as a player oftentimes is dictated by the level of coaching you get. And I think that all of Coach Majerus's players really benefited from his incredible knowledge of the game and left with an amazing understanding. He really just had a unbelievable mind for the game and really did a great job in terms of teaching fundamentals both individually and as a team.
And coming out in 97, you get drafted second by the 76ers, and you're immediately traded to the New Jersey Nets. You obviously have a good head on your shoulders there, so you couldn't be too naive, I wouldn't imagine, about the leap from, even though you're a 3-time WAC Player of the Year, consensus All-American, had an accomplished college career. What would you say? I mean, we're just 2 weeks out from the NBA draft, and there's a lot of one-year kids, whether it be Wiggins, Randolph, or even here in Utah, Dante Exum from Australia, who's never even played, in college in America. What was the biggest difference from college to the NBA, or what was the one thing that surprised you?
Well, I think that when you're playing in college, I think that there's certainly a camaraderie about the team. You're playing for, your friends, your teammates, your university, and I think that there's a certain camaraderie amongst everyone there between the fans and just everyone involved. And, it changes dramatically with the NBA, especially nowadays. I think kind of towards the, in the earlier part of my career, you started to see, just how much movement you see in the professional ranks nowadays. And I think it creates an environment where there, in general, isn't a lot of loyalty to players, from players to owners, from fans to players, from players to fans. It's a very transitory environment, and I think that it's difficult to really get behind the city and your teammates when you're seeing a majority of them change every single year. And so that was kind of the biggest difference to me. I wasn't necessarily prepared for that. Because I thought that it would be a little bit more of a feel like a college environment, but it isn't, and I think it's progressively getting worse.
Yeah, no doubt. And not only that, but the game is so much different. It's played so much different in the NBA than it is in college. And I wonder, obviously, your rookie year was insanely successful, but did it take you long to get acclimated to the new game of the NBA, maybe the speed and the physicality of it?
Not really. I felt I fit in pretty quickly, and physically I felt I matched up well at my position. I think that getting the opportunity to play against top level college competition and other All-Americans and whatnot really did a good job in terms of preparing me for the level of play that was going to be in the NBA.
Well, and I have to ask you, because in 2002, against that series against the Boston Celtics, I was not a Nets fan, but I was definitely a Keith Van Horn fan. So I was glued to that series. And then when you hit that game-winning shot in Game 6, I just about leaped out of my house. It was insane. I always try, whenever we interview athletes, I always try and get a sense of what does that feel like to hit a big game winner and send your team to the finals. I mean, what is that like? What is that moment like?
I think it's it's something that's just too difficult to put into words. It's just that it's those moments that kind of get ingrained in your memory and fans' memories, and it just kind of creates a special place in your heart for the game and your career. And so to be able to put like how you feel in that into words is really difficult.
Did it make it harder to go off to the Sixers the next year?
I always felt like it would be great to be able to play with one organization for a long time. So that trade definitely bothered me, and as I think it's just not easy in general on any player when you deal with trades. But like I said earlier, it's a different environment than college, and becomes much more of a business, and there just isn't a lot of loyalty left in the NBA.
And you've talked about the business side and how difficult that can be of the NBA. What if you were talking to Andrew Wiggins, what would be the one piece of advice? I mean, reports are the guy's already signed a $100 million 10-year contract with Adidas. What kind of advice? Mm-hmm. I mean, you were a high pick. You experienced almost everything you could in the NBA. What would be your one advice to him? Like, keep your nose to the ground and work, or what is the thing that he should be prepared for that'll be most shocked beside of the business part of the NBA?
Well, I think you have to. My advice would be to enter all situations in terms of contracts and teams with an open mind, and not feel like there's going to be a situation like Michael Jordan where he played with the Bulls primarily for his whole career, or Magic Johnson or something like that. That it's that the environment has changed, and to keep an open mind and not to let those the changes affect your ability to play and perform.
We were just talking about this before we came on the air. Right now it's NBA free agency, and everyone's waiting to see where LeBron and Carmelo Anthony will go. And it's so weird that they're trying to form these super teams throughout the league with major, franchises as in the Heat or possibly the Lakers. And we found it odd. Like, could you ever imagine, minus, Karl Malone or Michael Jordan at the end of their year, saying, I want to be on Michael Jordan's team? It seemed like those guys wanted to play against each other and beat each other. Or Larry and Magic. I mean, who can imagine Magic wearing a Lakers or a Celtics jersey?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's there are certainly some changes. However, not all great teams back in the 70s, 80s, early 90s were built through the draft. I mean, you had a situation like, even if you take the Bulls, you added Dennis Rodman from the Detroit Pistons. You take the Lakers of the 80s. You're taking a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from Milwaukee. I think that people feel like, oh, nowadays, all these great players are trying to get together, and that's never happened before. Well, it certainly has happened. Now, I think the biggest difference is, like, you have a situation with LeBron James where he's actively choosing to lead a team, which is, really different relative to, you look at a Magic Johnson or, Larry, the people you had just mentioned. I mean, you just can't even fathom, Larry Bird leaving the Celtics or Michael leaving the Bulls or Magic leaving the Lakers. It wasn't going to happen. And so I think ultimately that's that's the biggest difference, is when you see some of these major stars deciding to leave versus, the teams and those stars attracting the players to put around them.
And I mean, I think there's already kind of a level of, I don't know what to call it exactly, but fans are kind of frustrated with the way major superstars have been acting. I mean, you saw it in Cleveland when LeBron left, et cetera. Do you think this sort of movement where players are actually making the actions? I know you talked about, Kareem going to the Lakers and all that, but those were front office moves. Now it seems like it's more of a player movement, like player-oriented players kind of dictating. Is that good for the league, or do you think maybe the NBA and the players who are trying this sort of maneuvering will experience backlash?
Well, I think certainly you'll have some backlash. However, I think if you look at it on the flip side, the players don't entirely get a lot of loyalty from ownership.
Absolutely.
So I think the mentality has kind of shifted in that, if since the owners aren't showing any loyalty and are basically just kind of move players around like pawns, well, I think the players nowadays, kind of their mindset is, well, I don't necessarily feel any loyalty towards you either. And so it's a two-way street, and I understand that there's going to be fans that have that backlash, and I understand their position. But oftentimes it's kind of forgot that on the flip side, owners feel like they can trade anybody at any time, regardless of the circumstances. And so, it's a two-way street, and that's it's just a tough environment. I don't necessarily have an answer, but I know that you just don't have those situations today where fans develop a relationship with a player and get to enjoy them for their whole career. Like growing up in Los Angeles, I loved watching James Worthy. I mean, I can't even imagine, James Worthy being on another team. And it's, a situation where, nowadays if James Worthy was playing, he probably wouldn't have been on the Lakers for 12, 13 years. He would probably be similar to someone like Chris Bosh, who will probably end up playing with, 2, 3, 4 teams in his career. It's just different, and I don't have an answer, but I know there's a lot of circumstances that aren't great for everyone, and that's fans, owners, players.
Yeah, as fans, it's easy for us to sit here and complain about it, but it's actually really good to get a player's perspective because you actually were, immersed in this world and in this culture. So I am curious to bring it back to your college career. Do you still make it up to the Hill at all?
Say that again. You cut out on me.
Oh, sorry about that. Do you still make it up to the U to catch any games?
I've been to a few. I've made it out to some of the games out in Colorado when they played Air Force and Colorado State and University of Colorado, and I think since I've been retired, I've made it to 2 or 3 home games at the U, and I do get back there about twice a year. I work with the University of Utah National Advisory Council, so we have 2 meetings a year, and I go do that, and maybe one other time I get in to visit and see some old teammates and stop by the Huntsman Center. So I'm definitely involved, still engaged in the university and keep up to date with what's going on with the basketball program.
Do you have any thoughts on Chris Kobiak and the job he's done so far?
I think he's done a really good job. He really inherited a tough situation, a program that was ultimately on the decline, and then going into a really difficult conference. I think that he's done a great job getting players and really turning it around and making Utah competitive within 3 years after a really difficult situation.
This is Dog and Deuce, and we're talking with Keith Van Horn. Could you talk a little bit about the moment when you come back in '98 and they raised the number 44 to the rafters of the Huntsman Center, and how that felt after, giving so much to the program and accomplishing so much with Coach Majerus and kind of the, cherry on top, if you will?
Yeah, I just feel really blessed to have the career there I did. I feel a great connection to the fans and a loyalty to the school, and to just have to always be a part of that and be remembered, as part of the history of that great school. I'm just very blessed and fortunate.
And before we let you get out of here, I know there's a couple things that we like to acknowledge. And can you talk about a little bit about the good work you do with the Keith and Amy Van Horn Charitable Fund, and where maybe some of our listeners / viewers can get involved?
Yeah, we do a lot of work across a number of different charities, and a lot of them are just charities that my wife and I are really passionate about. And one in particular is the UFIT program at the University of Utah, which I helped to provide the initial grant to start that program. And that one is a great program for children, youth who have mental, physical, learning disabilities. And what happens is each Friday night during the school year, the parents of these children have the opportunity to drop their kids off, have their kids watched by students at the University of Utah Health Sciences Department that are in their master's program. And those parents actually have the opportunity to get out, go on a date, go to dinner, get some free time. And it's kind of a win-win. Those parents need a break. Dealing with mental and physical handicaps is it's kind of like a thankless job that kind of never ends. And then on the flip side, the health sciences students get an opportunity to work with people who they're trying to help in their fields when they're done with school. And I just really so happy to see that program grow and be as full as it is, and have the opportunity to help parents, those with special needs, and also the students at the University of Utah.
It sounds like everyone wins. That's a great program that I wasn't really aware of, and we'll make sure we put a link to that so the listeners and viewers of our website can find out more information and help support it. I know you're also
great. Thank you.
No problem. I also know you're the executive director of the Premier Colorado Basketball Club. Could you give a little bit of background about what the basketball club's all about? And
sure. Yeah, I am. When I got done playing, I just started working with kids in our local community. Just because I enjoyed working with them and passing along some of the knowledge that I had for the game, and just kind of kept growing and growing and growing to the point where I had to formalize it. And now we operate the largest basketball club in the state of Colorado. We operate camps and clinics and elite national level teams, and we've been fortunate enough to develop some of the, state players of the year and all state players. And, it's just a opportunity and an outlet for me to give back to the game and share some of the knowledge that I learned from all the incredible coaches that I had playing.
Yeah, and that was my follow-up question to that. I mean, I know you had some great coaches, whether it was Majerus, Larry Brown, or Calipari. Do you ever, when you're out there working with the kids, be like, oh, that was a Majerus moment, or oh, that was a Larry Brown, or that was a Calipari moment? Kind of see their personalities coming through and how you help guide these kids to be better basketball players?
Yeah, well, on the Majerus end, I certainly can't say some of the stuff Majerus used to say to these kids. But just in terms of like the philosophy that we try to instill, I really took a lot, and majority of it is from Majerus. I took a lot of that philosophy into what we teach and how we teach the game and how we believe that the game should be played. And then, in terms of the, Calipari, I really think he was a great motivator, and, to be able to motivate like him would be incredible. So yeah, certainly, aspects of lots of different coaches, and, even like Don Nelson, who is, my coach in Dallas for my first year there, just really creative basketball mind and looked at things differently than most coaches that I saw, whereas Majerus really was a purist, Nelson was very creative and had a lot of different ideas that I enjoyed listening to. So really, a lot of fun being able to pass along some of that stuff to the youth.
Yeah, that's quite a diverse bag of tricks you got there that you can pull from. That's amazing. Well, Keith Van Horn, we cannot thank you enough for giving us some of your time. Again, we were huge fans when you were playing here and followed your career throughout the NBA, and we're really proud to have you as a Ute, and thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. Just search @Dog and Deuce.
Thanks to Keith Van Horn for joining us. Really good stuff about Rick Majerus. He was pretty political when we asked him about, some of the controversy that surrounded Rick Majerus over the years.
Yeah, and I think he the point that I kind of always, or the way I always kind of viewed Coach Majerus as similar to him is, look, there's no secret to who he is. There really wasn't. It wasn't some kind of hidden thing about how he coached.
Right.
And, and I don't know if you want to call it temper, but he was a fiery guy, a 5'5" fiery guy who knew how to coach basketball. And if you expected to come to the University of Utah, no matter how good you were, and not get some feedback that might not be in the most polite way, then you probably shouldn't come. And,
right.
And I mean, that's kind of always how I thought of it. And, Mr. Van Horn, Keith there confirmed it for me.
Definitely. I mean, he was not an easy guy to play for. A lot of players couldn't hack it, and a lot of players transferred out. But the majority of the ones that did stick through it cite him as a huge influence and a critical factor in their success.
Yeah, whether it's on the court or off the court. The other thing that I think I kind of took away, and maybe I was reading between the lines here, is it didn't really matter what number you were as far as if you were the best player, a starter, or a bench player. He kind of expected the same thing, whether it was in the classroom, on the court, or off the court, just being a good a gentleman, if you will. It didn't matter, how many points he scored a game. His expectations were the same, 1 through 12.
Definitely.
And I think that's kind of an important part of who he was and the legacy he has left with the University of Utah.
Yeah, no doubt, man, no doubt. He was a fiery guy. Were you nervous at all talking to Keith Van Horn? I was.
I was a little nervous.
I was nervous. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've been following him for years and years, and I really was a huge – I told him over and over. Maybe it sounded too much like a fanboy, but I was a big fan of his.
Yep.
Throughout his career at the U and then when he went in the NBA. So that was fun. I really enjoyed talking to him. You're watching Dog and Deuce and listening to Dog and Deuce on KPDR TV, also known as K-Powder, and doganddeuce.com. If you'd like to give us some feedback, tell us what you thought of Keith Van Horn. We'd love to hear it. Head to doganddeuce.com for all the links to do that. Call or text the D&D Show voicemail text line, 801-477-7678. That's 801-47-SPORT. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about LeBron James. Shocked the world, man. He shocked the world.
The King's returning home.
He's going back to Cleveland.
Didn't you always kind of feel like this was going to happen?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, man.
I
always kind of felt like it was.
Not me.
It's kind of the fairy tale story, right? I mean, it's kind of what every kid dreams about, and that's why it was kind of, in a way, very shocking for me that he left Cleveland in the first place.
Right.
Because, when you're growing up, at least for me, when I was growing up here in Salt Lake playing basketball, on my way up through the ranks, it was I wanted to get drafted by the Jazz and win the first NBA title for the Jazz.
Yep.
Those were my dream shots, banking the banker or hitting the three at the buzzer for the Jazz to win the title. That's what I dreamed when I was a kid, and I imagine he had similar dreams growing up, being from Akron with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sure. So it was always kind of baffling to me why he left. I understood, you got to take that opportunity to get those rings. But returning home, I mean, it's the best thing for him, I think, on a personal and professional level. Because, look, whether or not we like it or not, Karl Malone wasn't even close to the level of playing the level of basketball when he left L.A. And the response of Salt Lake City wasn't as extreme as Cleveland. There was no one burning 32 jerseys out there at the Delta Center parking lot. But there was a lot of hostility, I would say, at least in the beginning. And I think as time went on, for those, I think he played 2 seasons in LA, if I'm correct. The hostility kind of waned, and he was welcomed back, after he retired. And I think you see that hostility towards LeBron James Wayne in Cleveland. And now he's coming back to try to, finish what he started. And that team, look, this is the smartest part of the move for me. If I'm advising LeBron James, number one rule, stay in the Eastern Conference no matter what.
Yeah, brilliant. Yep.
Because think about it. No matter where he goes, they're going to have a good shot at coming and playing in the Western Conference or in the NBA Finals. They're going to have a good shot to get there out of the East no matter where. Maybe now with Gasol moving to Chicago, the Bulls are obviously a very formidable team. But you're not really worried about the Heat. And if you get to the NBA Finals and you're LeBron, you think, I can give it a 7-game push or I can get it over the hump and bring it home.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've seen – I said this last week. I've been saying this for a long time. We've seen LeBron James do more with less than any other player I've ever seen in the history of the league.
Right.
When he was in Cleveland before, he had a bunch of scrubs and old guys who were on their way out. And he got them single-handedly to the NBA Finals.
Right.
And that's not an easy thing to do, even in the Eastern Conference. He's a better player now.
Better player in the Eastern Conference was better back then.
That's true. Very, very true. So definitely, without a doubt, smart move staying in the Eastern Conference, without a doubt. I think as bad of a choice to do the decision back in 4 years ago in 2010 when he went on ESPN and announced to the world, shocking everyone that he's taking his talents to South Beach. As bad of a choice that was to do that, the way he did this was brilliant because he did it in his own words. He wrote a letter. Mainly, I think it was addressed obviously to everyone, all NBA fans, but I really think it was a letter to the Cleveland fans more than anything, and also a little bit to Miami fans. But I think it was really, I'm sorry, I screwed up, and I want to make it right, and I want to do it in my hometown. And I thought that was the best way to do it, without a doubt.
Yeah, the silence that, look, you get on camera, you can do things, you can look goofy. Look at us right now.
Right.
But, you can take the time and write a letter and have it, the emotion and the feelings that you have in your brain and heart be poured out, and you don't have to do anything else. Let someone read it, and they can, get the feeling of emotion. I think you're right. The letter was the best idea. And I also thought the important point of it to me was, you kind of got to give the kid a break. He was 18 when he was drafted in his hometown, had enormous success for that franchise. Obviously, he hadn't brought home a ring for him yet, but this 4-year trip was like him going to college.
It definitely was.
Anyone, 18 throwing that kind of money and that kind of immediate success is going to have the desire to see what's out there.
This is quite a different tone, though, than you were singing 4 years ago.
Well, what do you mean?
You weren't saying, let's give him a break. Let's, he just made a bad decision.
That's because he's returning. It was a bad decision.
Now
he's trying to rectify it.
I know, but even at the time, you could have said, well, he made a bad decision going on TV and doing it that way.
Well,
but I'm not blaming you because I was in the same boat.
Right.
And so was everyone else, I think. Every other NBA fan was in the same boat. LeBron James became a villain.
Right.
And everyone hated him.
Yeah, for the Miami had a lot of obstacles to overcome there when they got that super team together.
And all I got to say is he must have the same PR people that Kobe Bryant has.
Right.
Because Kobe Bryant was in the similar boat, only I think LeBron James was more hated, and now he's even more loved than Kobe Bryant. That's a bigger turnaround than Kobe Bryant had.
Yeah, here the beauty of going home is that they're always going to take you back.
No matter what.
That's the beauty. When you're that good and you're that kid and you let's be honest, I haven't gone through a history of who's famous or who's one of the best athletes to come from Akron, but everyone knows where LeBron James is from. Put him on the map.
Right, exactly.
They're going to forgive you. And you know what? If you happen to raise that trophy in Quicken Loans Arena in a short time, it's all forgotten.
I'm telling you right now, he will win at least 2 championships in Cleveland.
2 championships.
2, at least 2. I'm telling you right now. This is one of those things. It's like Jordan coming back after his first retirement. You knew he was just going to dominate.
Right.
And there was a lot of speculation at that point. Does he still have it? Is he still the same player? And now it's a different speculation, but it's a similar vibe. Like he doesn't have the right personnel. They're going to be down. And I think they'll be down, but I think they're going to have a bigger upswing immediately than anyone will credit them for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I think he played it so smart because
It's brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
if you tell me right now, right, if I say who is the best team in the East, I don't think I'm going to say the Cavs, but I'm going to say someone like probably the Bulls. But
Sure.
you're telling me for 5 games, LeBron James can't overcome the Chicago
you know what?
Bulls. He overcame the
I'm
Detroit Pistons with less players.
Definitely.
They got Kyrie Irving. They got Wiggins. He's going to contribute, at least on the defensive
And
end.
they were coming off championships, man.
Right. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to say. I think it's going to take him probably 2 years because the West is deep, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Miami's not. I mean, they're not hurting right now. I mean, it's a big blow losing LeBron James. Obviously, I'm not downplaying that at all. But they're with Dwayne Wayne re-signing, Chris Bosh. I think it's an even bigger re-signing. Luol Deng. I mean, they're playing it up in Miami. It's a good get.
Right.
It's not LeBron James. It's kind of a consolation prize. But they're still going to be formidable.
Yeah, they'll be good.
They still got Birdman.
Yeah,
your
they
favorite.
still,
Your favorite.
yeah, oh yeah, my favorite. I mean, here's the thing about Miami that concerns me is I don't see Bosh leading the team, and I'm not so sure about how much longer Dwayne Wade's knees can hold out.
I think he's got another year where he can really lead that team. After that, I mean, we saw his performance drop already, and I think it's going to drop more. But I still think he's got another year where he can lead that team and kind of will them deep into the playoffs.
Right. Well, and the final thing that I think LeBron looked at when making this decision is, look, Dwayne Wade, I think, played like 30 games in the regular season or missed 30.
Right.
I can't remember which it is. Chris Bosh, he's like, if I'm going to have to carry this load in Miami like I did, why wouldn't I just go home and get more money and be comfortable and deal with the same stress?
Right.
When the Super team was put together, the idea was that LeBron wouldn't have to do everything. Well, I think if you watch the finals, you'll know LeBron still had to do everything for that team.
Definitely.
Why not go home and do it and, kind of repair the wounds?
And the league's going to be pulling for him now.
Yep.
As much as everyone was rooting against him, everyone's going to be pulling for him.
Right.
We're running short on time, but last question on this topic. Were you, because there was a lot of talk that he was in, a lot of rumors that he was in talks with Cleveland to go back there. What were your thoughts? When I heard that, I'm going to be honest. I was like, he's playing these poor people. Like, I honestly thought he was going to be going to New York or something like that to play with Carmelo or do another, super team somewhere.
Right.
And I really was like, I don't think Cleveland can take another big blow from him. I was worried. I really didn't think he was going to be going there.
The thing is, like, I really thought Cleveland was the front runner just because of this. What you're saying, like, could he really do that? That might be the nail in the coffin.
Like, as much flack as he got before, it's going to be compounded, and it's going to be an exponential blow up from the entire league, but especially Cleveland. And that was the only thing that I was like, maybe it's serious, but I still don't see him going back there because it's such a crappy team right now.
Right. I mean,
with a first-year head coach.
Yeah, don't forget that. If he was going to do that sort of negotiation and then not go there, and it all came down to Miami or Cleveland really in the end.
Right.
And if he chose again after going through this kind of, recruiting process, it would have been bad. The other thing, if I was Miami, I would have been immediately worried, right? If he doesn't, if the moment he opted out, even though he could have get max money, like you can negotiate that without him opting out, without him going through this recruiting process, and for him to immediately opt out the day after the finals.
Well, and I think Pat Riley did everything he could.
Absolutely.
And he handled it well. I mean, as horribly as Dan Gilbert handled this thing, and I know Pat Riley's not the owner, but I'll tell you what, Pat Riley really handled this whole thing with class. He was upset, but he handled it well. He's not going to have to be eating his words in 2 years if he decides to come back to Miami, because who knows at this point. You're watching and listening to Dog and Deuce on KPDR, K-Powder TV, and doganddeuce.com. We're going to move on to our next segment after this.
What do you think? Call or text the TNT voicemail and text line at 801-47-SPORT and tell us what's on your mind.
We're going to have to play that bumper more often, I think.
Yep.
It's we usually go for the iTunes one, but that's the one.
We need to hear from you guys.
I seriously, we want to make a push. I want to hear what people think. So yeah, let us know. Seriously, the voicemail text line, 801-477-7678, 801-47-SPORT, if you are a letter person. Okay, Utah Jazz. This thing is driving me crazy with Gordon Hayward. It's driving me crazy.
I could tell the first moment I saw you, Gordon was on your mind.
You know, we devoted a lot of time to Keith Van Horn, I think rightly so. But I am a little bummed that we don't have more time to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because this thing is really eating me up. Gordon Hayward, let's reset this thing for anyone who might need it. Gordon Hayward signed an offer sheet with Charlotte.
Hornets.
The Hornets, I know. I'm like...
That's the bet. That's like one of the best.
They got to
news
go
that
back to
came
the
out.
Hornets,
Yep.
right? I don't think it's fair that they get all the records and everything and the jerseys and from the old Hornets.
Do they
franchise.
get your mama, your grandmama?
Yeah.
Do they get the grandmama?
Yeah, they
commercials?
they hold all the rights to
Ooh.
the commercials. Yeah,
Those
yeah,
are
I'm
the
sure.
best.
Yeah, they'll be playing those to open the games. But he signed a max deal offer sheet with Charlotte and the Utah Jazz. I don't understand it, but they matched it. Gordon Hayward is getting let me emphasize this. A max deal.
4 years,
The maximum.
$63 million.
I'm sorry, he's not worth it. I understand wanting to retain him, but that is ridiculous. You're crippling your ability to re-sign all these young guys that you've worked so hard to get. That's going to be really tough now. And plus, he's just not worth it. I'm sorry. He is at best, at his very best, a second option. You should never have a second option unless you are the Miami Heat, who is a max deal guy. But honestly, he's probably a third option, and that's where he's best.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at last year, I mean, I know he had the best, season of his career, 16.2 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 5.2 assists last season. But when he really made the most impact was not starting. It was coming off the bench. And I'm not obviously willing to put him in the Ginobili category because you got to win championships and do that in crunch time in the playoffs when it really matters to get that kind of respect amongst the league. Sure, I'm not trying to deny that Gordon Hayward isn't a good player. He is. He's a good player.
Yep.
But is he 4 years, $63 million worth? Not for me, but the only reason I can think that the Jazz did this, Lindsey with Snyder coming in, is that you're going to see a drastically new offense where now Cantor and Favors might become expendable, whereas in the past with Corbin, following kind of the Sloan protocol or model for running an offense, those guys were more important.
Right.
We might see an offense that is solely focused around Dante Exum, Trey Burke, Alec Burks, and Gordon Hayward, where the big guys aren't as important in the scoring process.
I don't like it. I know this is a new NBA, but traditionally you got to put a lot of focus. The teams that traditionally win championships have good big men who are their first or second options. They put an emphasis on big men. I know it's a different league nowadays. I understand that, but still, I really believe in that. I think it's important. The thing that troubles me about Gordon Hayward is now he is a max guy. So now you have to make him your first option.
Yeah, and the problem with the max deal thing is you can never go backwards from that.
Exactly. It happened with Karolinko.
How do you trade that contract if you don't want it?
You can't.
I mean, it's a difficult situation to put yourself in if he doesn't pan out. Another thing I think Lindsey was looking at, and again, I want to reiterate, I don't necessarily agree with this move. I wasn't in favor of even drafting Gordon Hayward as high as he was.
Right.
But there were 5 players last year in the NBA who averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Do you want to give a guess to who those were?
No.
LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Gordon Hayward, and Michael Carter-Williams of the 76ers.
Okay.
So he is in elite company in that regard. But
are we putting too much emphasis on that, though?
Well, for me, here's the thing. When you pay someone max top dollar that they can get and that was offered by another team, the question is, what impact does he have night in and night out?
You know what? And that's the biggest problem, because if you look at his college career, first year, he was shooting lights out. Percentages were lights out. Second year, teams were focusing on him, and he couldn't do it. His shooting just plummeted, his shooting percentage. Same thing happened in his pro career.
Well, and part of the problem here is and the difference between him and, I would argue, all the other people on this list, maybe with the exception of Michael Carter-Williams, is Gordon Hayward is going to have to now not live on the perimeter. This guy lives on the perimeter all last year, the year before. He can't get his own shot. He can't create his own shot, really. He needs to get to the rim. I don't know how he finds a way to do that. But for me, if it were my money to spend, which it's not, I wouldn't have matched it. I think there's other players, better players. I mean, the Charlotte Hornets got Lance Stevenson instead from Indiana for less money. Right. And for my money, I would have rather paid Lance Stevenson less money to come to Utah than Gordon Hayward, 4 years, $63 million.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, it just, with that kind of contract, it's scary because, like you said, if he doesn't pan out, you can't trade him. There's no benefit to having it. He's very unproven right now. He's proven that he can contribute. He hasn't proven that he can lead a team and be a max guy at all, just like Karolinko didn't at the time. Karolinko was putting up numbers like that too, if you remember.
Right.
I think it's a very similar situation to that, only Karolinko could play some badass defense.
Right.
He was amazing.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's the thing that I don't feel we get from Gordon Hayward every night is on the defensive end. And look, for the Charlotte Hornets, this would have been a good signing because in the East, night in and night out, you're not going to see the Kobe's, the Westbrooks, the Durants, the Ginobili's, the Kawhi Leonard, I think, is getting to that category now. I mean, we can go. You're not going to see the Currys or the Klay Thompsons out of Golden State. You're not going to have these matchup discrepancies night in and night out. So, yeah, he could go there, and for the rest of his career in the Eastern Conference, with the exceptions of the nights he plays LeBron or Carmelo, he's going to average 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. No problem. Probably make the All-Star team. Is that his future in the Western Conference? I'm not so sure.
It's a much harder conference to do it.
And I think it's a hard argument to make if you look at it from that perspective.
I totally agree. So I honestly understand Jazz fans. I'm right there with you. It's perplexing to me. I don't understand it. I hope I'm wrong. Just like when they drafted him, I was in your boat. I didn't like the pick at that high.
Right.
He's proven that he can contribute, and he has pleasantly surprised me. He's been a lot better than I ever expected him to be. So I hope I'm wrong here. I don't know if I am, though. It's a little scary. I do want to move on, though, and talk about some positives for the Jazz. Now, it's Summer League in Vegas. The Jazz are playing in I don't even know what it's called.
It's the Las Vegas Summer League or something.
I miss the Rocky Mountain Review. I miss it.
I feel like the Jazz should personally boycott all summer leagues and just start the Rocky Mountain Review. I mean, that was stolen from us.
It was. 100%.
Those were great times.
Those were fun, man.
And now it's in Vegas and Florida. I mean, come on. Get up to some thin air and do some training.
Absolutely. That's how it should be. That's how the rookies should get their legs under them. But Dante Exum, now keep in mind, it is the Summer League, okay? So the talent that they're competing against is not good. But Dante Exum has just torn it up. I mean, I am so impressed. I was not expecting this. A guy who hasn't seen an American court, an Australian guy, but he is performing so well. So it's very, very, very encouraging. Have you got a chance to see any of his playing? What are your thoughts so far in the last 3.5 minutes that we have?
I mean, I've seen the highlights. I would call myself pleased, but not. I wouldn't even go with impressed. Pleased, I mean, if he couldn't come out and play this well against the competition, I mean, a lot of these guys are fighting for roster positions, so they're not top level. They're not starters. They're not the 6th or 7th or 8th guy on a roster. They're the 10s, 11s, and 12s.
Yep.
So he should be able to come out and perform well. Although at times he has struggled with turnovers, making some what could be argued ill-advised fouls / passes.
I think that'll come though,
and that's to be expected. Right. By all everything I've seen and by all accounts, high basketball IQ, and he's playing well, but it's just hard until we see him on the court against even the second point guard on a team.
Well, and I do want to. I don't want to be a downer, but I do want to point out that a lot of his points are coming off of amazing point guard play.
Right.
I mean, they're just, Burke is finding him in the right places, and he's just putting it up. And so that's another good sign that they have chemistry and that they're able to do that. But so just, you don't want to get too excited or ever you don't want to get too down either. But you just, take it for what it's worth. He's playing horrible competition right now. But it is encouraging because we have seen guys in the past go to Jazz Summer Leagues and not perform.
I mean, for example, Trey Burke last year really struggled in the Summer League.
He did, and it was a concern. It was a big concern. I was really worried at that point.
Yep.
It seems, hopefully, we've been proven wrong. I mean, he's still got a long career ahead of him, but but that is a cautionary tale. It looked like Trey Burke, maybe this was a bad choice, but then he ended up panning out. Maybe we don't want it to be the opposite for Exum.
I think the lesson learned from Trey Burke last year, who played pretty well in his rookie year on a team that was struggling and young, trying to find itself, was you can't put too much weight in either direction. Whether we can't say Dante Exum's going to be amazing, he's going to change the franchise, but we can't also say he's not going to be that good because he's playing well against players trying to make an NBA roster. You just got to take it for what it is. Like I say, I'm pleased because I expected him to do at least somewhat well. If he got drafted 5, he's doing pretty well, and now it's just we need to see the trajectory continue to go upward instead of plateauing like maybe some of our other picks in the past have.
Definitely. So we'll keep our eyes peeled. Unfortunately, for me personally, I know people disagree with this. A lot of the media guys disagree with this, but the Hayward thing kind of dampened my enthusiasm for the future of this team. But there still are a lot of bright spots. So I'm not going to get too down. Friend of the show, David Wilbur, he predicted the Jazz would win a championship, I think, in 2 years.
That's not
the
happening.
Hayward thing, I tweeted it out, too. We love Dave. He's awesome. But I tweeted out, I'm not as confident in that prediction as I was before this Hayward thing.
Yeah.
God bless him, though. All right, well, that's going to do it for Dog and Deuce this week. As always, you can catch us on K-Powder, channel 19.1 and 19.2 all weekend long. We're going to be on, and then we'll be on during the week as well. We will, if you go to doganddeuce.com, we will definitely have all the times and channels that you can check us out. If you do just want to listen to the audio feed, go to doganddeuce.com. Also find us on iTunes. That's a good way to get in touch with us. And as always, you can call or text the D&D Show voicemail and text line 801-477-7678. That's 801-47-SPORT. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for being a participant.
I like it.